So on the scale diagram, I come up with this angle and it's about 10 degrees. So I redid that and made a scale drawing. And in the scale drawing, I want to start at about an inch wide at the end. And I've noticed that from the end up to 3 inches away from the end, it increases from 1 inch to 2 inches. So because that's only 3 inches apart, the easiest way to do this is to take my dividers, set one end of the dividers on what will be the end, and then stretch them out to 3 inches, and then I can mark the diameter. I can mark where I want my 1 inch in diameter and where I want my 2 inch in diameter just by brushing these dividers against the spinning billet on the lathe. The only other thing that I have to worry about before I start actually making or turning this taper down to size is that the little knobs that I want to turn, that I'm going to use this mandrel for, I normally turn a small knob with a 1/4 inch tenon on it, and the tenon's what's going to fit in the end of the mandrel. So I normally turn the knobs with a 1/4 inch tenon, but because these are going to be drawers with more weight and stuff in them, I've decided to go a little bit bigger. 3/8 is a little bit too big, so I'm going to go with 5/16, and hopefully that'll do the trick, and if it doesn't, well, I guess I'll have to figure that out later. Before I start turning down to the correct taper, I'm going to make a 5/16 hole in the end, and that will be the hole that the little tenon on the end of the knob will fit into, and that's how the mandrel will hold the knob as it's being turned. This billet was turned originally with this live center attached to it or pressed against it. I don't want that in there right now. The first thing I'm going to do before I go too much farther is I'm going to have to drill a hole. Before I drill a hole, what I'm going to do is I'm going to reposition this this tool rest, and I just want to make a little divot there so that the drill bit goes in clean. So I'm just going to take the skew and just touch it. And I got a little knobby on there I want to get rid of. And that little hole is dead center, so that'll guide my drill bit in. So shut that down, and I'm going to put this chuck in. This is just a like a drill chuck, and that sticks in the end. And I'll move the tool rest out of the way. Okay, I'm mounting that drill bit in there, and I'll tighten it down. And just to make sure it looks like it's good and straight. And what I'll do is I'm going to crank this back, not too far, or the thing will hold it, and I'm going to slide that drill bit up to that hole, tighten this down, and I don't want to tighten this shaft down too much because I want to feed that in. So I'll just back this off, start it up, and I want a hole that's about, I don't know, a good inch, inch and a half deep. So I just feed the drill bit in by cranking it. And then I'll pull it right back out. And shut her down, and I got it about from there up to there, so that's a good, what, about 1 1/4 inches, almost 1.5 inches. Okay, hole drilled, and I need to mark the location of my taper. So I'm going to mark out my taper, and then I'm going to spin this end here down to 1 inch, and then I'll turn this end down to 2 inches. And then I'll make the taper in between, And then I'll just round this out a bit so that it's not in my way. Being careful because there are screws that are in here that go about 1/2 an inch or about 3/4 of an inch into the wood. So the screws go in this deep. I'm going to want to steer clear of that as much as possible. So I'll flip this on. Watch what I'm doing. Touch it. There's my 2 diameters. Now just to make that a little bit easier to see, I'm going to run a pencil into them. And I'm going to turn this down to 1 inch and that down to 2 inches. So I've got that one down. It's a little on the rough side, isn't it? I'll clean that up after. I've got this one down to about 1 1/8 inches. It's a strong 1/8 inch. Now I'll set these at 2 inches and then I'll turn it down at this point. And then all I have to do is smooth in between the two. And that, as long as I go gently from that diameter down to that diameter, I will have myself the 10-degree taper that I'm looking for. Okay, so the caliper's set at 2 inches now. And I just realized why this is so rough. I picked the only tool that's never been used on the rack. I've never actually sharpened that one, so I'm going to go with my one that has been sharpened. And I'll turn this one, next one, down to 2 inches. And then we'll turn the taper in between. Shut her down because I'm starting to get too much crap all over the place. Okay, so you can see I've got about the same amount left to go on either side, so that means I've got a taper. You can actually see the taper there, but I got a little bit of I want to put 2 lines here that cross in the middle at 90 degrees to each other and go right through the center of the circle. So I'm going to use Thales theorem. I'm going to use this little right angle triangle thing. And if I put the 90-degree angle on the corner or on the edge of the circle, and I mark where these two, where the two sides that end up at the right angle touch the circle, if I connect the dots between those 2 points where they touch the edge of the circle, that will go right through the center. That has to be a diameter. And then all I have to do is mark another one that's 90 degrees to that. And that'll be a little bit tougher because I'm going to have to start using the ruler to find 90 degrees, and then I'll have to find the right positioning of the ruler to hit that 90-degree angle dead on. So I'll mess with that and I'll get this marked. Finished collet chuck, and this is the ring that I've turned to put on it, which has a taper on it that's similar to the taper here. Now I didn't show a lot of video about how to turn this because, to be honest with you, I had a hell of a time getting that taper in there. I don't know what kind of tool you use to do that, but all my gouges were too big. My scrapers are just about too big, so I don't know if I need a smaller tool for that. That's what I'm assuming. Anyway, you can see that it's had catches. I started out trying to do it like a bowl. I ended up drilling a 1-inch hole through this with a Forstner bit on the lathe, and eventually used a scraper to take all this out, but I had a heck of a time with it. Now, it fits almost the way that I want it. And if I take a mallet, I can hammer around it. I got the camera in one hand, so this isn't working out so hot. And I can get the collet to close, and it seems to work reasonably well. But this being a hardwood, which may have been a mistake, if I do another one of these, I may try something else. This being a hardwood, it's kind of shining this up, and the tapers don't match 100%. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this back in the lathe, and I'm going to sand this until this taper fits, because I think that would be easier than trying to figure out this taper. And when I'm done with that, I'm going to take this piece here, and I'm going to really quickly turn a matching taper on that, just to ram this down on so I can turn the rest of the donut, because I don't want to leave it with edges like that. Alright, a little bit of sailor talk there, but that did work, and now I'm going to turn the other taper so that I can smooth this thing out. Okay, there it is. Collet chuck a la Ernie Conover. One thing I think I learned from this is that I think that his taper is a lot more gently sloped than what mine is. That's what you get for working off photographs, but you know, sometimes you have to do it. So if I did this again, this taper would be much more gradual. This little thing here was the worst part of the project. I can't tell you how much swearing I did over that thing, but I think with a gentler taper you wouldn't have to be worried so much about the taper inside.